Good afternoon, and welcome to the fourth day of ELT Week Argentina 2026. My name is Mariela Mazuyama, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm Head of English and School Education Programs with the British Council in Argentina. On behalf of the British Council, we would like to give a special thanks to our partner, Brit Cham, to all our speakers, and of course, to you all for participating and making ELT Week a fantastic event. As you know, if you haven't, you can go back to watch any of the previous sessions we have had Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday on our YouTube channel for the British Council Argentina on the live tab in the channel. Now, before we begin, let me remind you that safeguarding is a priority for the British Council, so you're encouraged to leave your comments and questions in the chat while maintaining positive and respectful communication and without posting any personal or sensitive information in your comments. Remember also, tomorrow we will be posting a link to a form for you to fill in with your details in order to receive your certificates of participation. This form will come tomorrow after towards the end of the last session, and also by email to all the participants who registered for the event. So be on the lookout and don't forget to fill in that form to receive your certificate of attendance. Now, let's go to our first session today. For our first session, we have two fantastic speakers, Mirta Clarissa Godoy, who is a teacher and educational leader, currently serving as coordinator of intercultural bilingual education at the Ministry of Education in Corrientes. She has extensive experience in curriculum design, bilingual and multilingual education, and development of educational materials. And her work focuses on promoting linguistic diversity, equity, and intercultural approaches across all levels of education. And with Clarissa, we will have Claudia Analia Cordova. Claudia is also an English teacher, educator, and jurisdictional English advisor within the Intercultural Bilingual Education Department for the Ministry of Education in Corrientes, Argentina. She's also a university lecturer in English for health sciences, and her professional interests include teacher development, ELT policy, curriculum design, and materials development. So together, they will be delivering a fantastic session that will discover the role of mentoring to strengthen pedagogical practice, foster reflective teaching, and support meaningful learning in diverse school contexts. So a big welcome to Clarissa and Claudia.
Hello, everyone. We are really pleased to be here with you at this ELT week. And my name is Clarissa Godoy, and I am accompanied by Claudia Cordova. I am responsible for the Modalidad de Educación Intercultural Bilingüe de la provincia de Corrientes in Argentina. I have been working for the last 12 years, and Claudia has accompanied me since minute one. Well, this year we had the report from secondary education as regards difficulty they were having in secondary school, and in order to solve that problem, we decided to come up with a program, and as that solution was from Claudia is now the coordinator of that program. The program is called Mentoring in Action, and we are really happy to present it here with the objective of seeing if you can use this in the future everywhere, and if it's useful for you, well, we are so happy. We are, in fact, in Corrientes, Argentina, And it is worth mentioning that one of the missions that we have is to accompany all the foreign languages present in the educational system. So it was clear that when the difficulty that we are going to mention in the future appeared, it was logical that we were going to deal with it. Corrientes has boundaries with Uruguay, with Brazil and Paraguay. Thus, it is a place in which there is a great circulation of languages, different languages, such as Guarani, Portuguese, and the Spanish register of Uruguay. This is worth mentioning because this exactly situation occurs in every classroom in boundary areas and in other areas too. But well, now Clavia will go on explaining. We need to. I wanted you to know that we have a great variety and deep cultural richness in our province, and that we handle lots of languages at the same time.
Well, thank you very much, Clarissa. Hello, everyone. My name is Claudia Cordova, and as Clarissa has already introduced me, I'd like to tell you that the objective of this presentation is, as you can see on the screen, to showcase a transformative mentoring model that tries to empower EFL teachers in Corrientes to bridge the gap between students' reality and classroom learning. And so today we will be covering some of the following topics. We will tell you a little bit about the context in our schools in Corrientes, some data that we have and some findings, the concept of mentoring, the program itself, the role of the mentor, some shifts in teaching practices that we have already seen, and lessons learned, and of course, some drawbacks. But before we start with our presentation, we would like to invite you to close your eyes, if you want, and to travel back in time to that very first day in which you entered a classroom to teach English. Can you do so? Do you remember that day? Do you remember how you felt? Do you remember the thoughts that you had on that day, your doubts, maybe your fears? Can you connect with those emotions that you had? Okay, and then do you remember that person that you chose as a mentor to help you undergo this process of being a teacher? Who was that person? Maybe it was another teacher, maybe it was a colleague, maybe it was a friend, or your mom, your dad, or I don't know, someone special that you admire deeply, right? Who was that mentor? You're invited to write down your comments in the chat box. And so think about your own mentors and their impact on your life. As we read your comments, this very little exercise, visualization exercise, just reminds us that teaching is a pedagogical practice, but it is mainly an emotional one. And that these emotions arise year after year, because now you will be thinking, well, what about the groups that I will have this year? Will I be able to work with them properly? Will I be able to manage their behavior? Will I be able to work with their needs and satisfy their desires, their expectations, right? And so what really changes over time is not the complexity of teaching. As you know, teaching is a very complex process, but how supported we feel in the classroom, at the school, or wherever we are working, that is the thing that is going to change everything, how supported we feel when facing it. So today we're going to speak a little bit about this and why mentoring has become so important in our programs in Corrientes. Clarissa is going to tell you now a little bit more about our context in secondary schools.
Thank you, Cla. Okay, so we need to understand the context, and for that, I already told you about Corrientes and the geographical position, which is very important as regards the presence of different language and the plurilingualism that we have here in our province. And you know that when the technical coordinators from secondary school came up with this difficulty they have, which was that they had the data of certain schools, certain institutions that had a great number of students who couldn't pass the subject English as a foreign language. And they said, okay, we need to do something. We need to know what's going on in those schools, and we need to help teachers to help the students. So that is when Clavia came up with the idea, and here you have her. So one of the things that we had clear in mind was that we need to have a small number of schools so as to have a good management, as we are 2 plus 4 professionals, 4 mentors who were going to deal with the difficulty. And one of the first things that we found was that, of course, teachers who were in those 4 schools here in Capital had on the contrary, very large size classes, highly heterogeneous groups, and as you know, at least in Latin American countries, limited exposure to English outside the classroom. That is very important to mention, because the opportunities our students have to be in contact with the language is only the time that they are in the classroom and not outside. We also have this situation. Some of our teachers are not graduated, teachers who were or who are in those schools. But let me tell you that those teachers were the ones who embraced the program first, and were the ones who decided that a couple or a pair of eyes helping is better than not having nobody and not having elements to improve. And reality tells us that when we study and when we get into our first practices, we say, okay, now we are going to go into this communicative approach, and we are going to make our students work a lot on especially oral skills, this and that is not something. That is something that not always happens. And in reality, sometimes we are forced, because of the previous aspects I mentioned, we are forced on focus on grammar and vocabulary and exercises, and we not pay attention to the 4 necessary skills we need to practice. Apart from that, you can see on the right 2 covers of the series of the books that we have written here for our teachers. During the last 12 years, we were producing books, and there you've got made in Corrientes 1, 2, and 3, a series for primary school, and then you've got teens around the globe 1, 2, and 3 too. They are books which are covering primary and the last years of primary and the first years of secondary. They are based on the curriculum from the province. They are contextualized. They've got a balance of the 4 abilities, but they are not compulsory to be used. So, many of the teachers in the province do not use it, and in these schools, the teachers do not use the serious tag. We do not mean that because they are not using tag, their students are failing. Please, no. But there is a tendency to use, and then we are going to speak about imported models. There is a tendency to use books which sometimes do not mean anything to our students, and sometimes using material which is more appropriate is better. Well, there is a tendency also to think that if our students fail, probably the teachers have something to do. We did not think that, we do not think that, but we knew that something had to be done. Probably the solution could be helping them. So mentoring in action is that.
Clarissa has just explained. We had this request from a secondary education level to work with schools according to this exhaustive diagnostic phase that they had done with our COPE, Corrientes Operativo Provincial de Evaluación. And according to the data they had, they were able to find a critical zone, a red zone in the first 3 years of secondary schools. You can see there just a graph that can guide you. Of course, we cannot write down the names of the schools because of safety reasons. And what they were able to find is that most students were at an initial A1 level, regardless of their school year. And they had significant difficulties in speaking and listening, with the high impact of socioeconomic vulnerability on attendance and engagement, without mentioning that there was, well, okay. So what we decided to do with this information that we had was to go to each of these 4 schools and interview, by means of this instrument called focus group, to interview more than 200 students that were the ones that were going to participate in the mentoring program. There you can see, after analyzing all these interviews, that as a result, we can see a very positive attitude towards learning English, high curiosity and engagement when activities are interactive and meaningful. And there is this phrase that was really awakening, because there was a message made by most of the students that was super clear, and it was like, something like this. And I say something like this because this is what we came up with. And this was a message that guided the whole mentoring program this year. And it said, we really want to learn to speak English, not just copy. Wow, that was super powerful for us. And it helped us work with the mentors during the program, because it helped us move from a very traditional experience in the classroom to something more communicative, although teachers said and believed they were working communicatively in the classrooms, and students could say, no, it is not like that. But before working with mentoring, we would like to tell you what mentoring is for us, or what the concept of mentoring we're working with is. Mentoring is a professional dialogue between peers. So here we have 2 experienced teachers who meet and who talk and who co-work in order to become better in their professions. That's the idea, right? Mentoring is not inspection. It is not evaluation. Teachers are not going to be evaluated by the mentor and then they will be able to, I don't know, lose their job or something. It has nothing to do with that. It is not a top-down training. It is this space where 2 teachers, 2 experienced teachers, one with a little bit more of theoretical knowledge, and the other one with the huge and very valuable knowledge of the context in the classroom, the culture of the school, and everything related to this group of students that they are working with has. And so together they work, they co-work, they reflect, and they try to become the best version of themselves, because this is a 2-way process. Both teachers are benefited by working together.
Okay, thank you, Clavia. So, How does the program work? It works through observation. And when we speak about observation, classroom observation, we have to say, to make it very clear, they were not isolated observations. We try to watch classes on steady basis. And of course, we could not cope with all the teachers at school. We could not cope with all the classrooms at school, but we did our best with a number of teachers and a number of classrooms, especially first year, which is the first contact that the students have in the classroom. The second step is the short and focused feedback conversation. This is crucial because, as Clavia has just expressed, we were not in the mood of saying this is what you have to do or this is what you are doing wrong, but on the opposite, we are just saying, wow, this is great, but maybe if you do it in this or this way or this other way, it would be better. Some of the teachers there to co-plan with our mentors, and some of them accepted the personalized action plans that we organized with the mentors. Some others did not. It was a pity, but that is the reality that we face in our schools. And of course, small changes is the idea. We do not want to change everything, but small changes through time so that they can stay in time. Okay? We are very short of time, so we are going to move.
Okay, so as we told you before, there were 4 schools, so we decided to assign one different mentor for each of the schools. And after working with the strategies and techniques of mentoring and being trained on leadership and mainly on listening, the mentors went to work with the teacher, and their role was mainly that of a facilitator, right? It was more about relationships than on the pedagogical context, because they had to mediate between the theory and praxis, because between the theory and the teacher's decisions, between the theory and their observations, and the teacher's beliefs, right? So they acted as a bridge between, as it says on the screen, the policy and the classroom reality. And as I told you before, they were their work was mainly based on listening attentively, on empathy, and of course on professional respect. And what we have realized is that trust makes change possible, because when teachers feel safe, they are able to work with new opportunities and with new ways of doing things in a different way. So, as the process and this program progressed, we saw some shifts in teaching practice already. As you have seen, you may see perhaps on the screen, there's an agenda, there's a self-awareness test. So there was an increased use of classroom English with activities that promoted interaction in the class by the use of these resources as routines. There were more interactions, games, and projects. Here you can see students playing outside the classroom, and the focus was mainly in oral production. And there was a better balance of the 4 skills, right? Not only copying, as students said, or filling in exercises in photocopies. So there was a lot of work in oral activities and also in listening, as the one that you can see on the right.
We learned some lessons, such as the fact that we need time so as to have changes. And if we want those changes to stay for a long period, we need time. Mentoring is not judgmental. We mentioned that, and we could do it. The context, more than the important models, are important. And mentoring is not a luxury. Having a mentor is super, so as not to fall in the idea that we are the best and that we are doing something, which then the students tell us, come on, it's not happening. Okay? And of course, if we support teachers, those teachers are going to support the students, and that was what we wanted to get. There were drawbacks, of course, like the schedules that were very difficult to synchronize because we are teachers and we teach lots of hours. The shift into the traditional, into the transformative student context model, center model, and of course the resistance. We won't say that there wasn't resistance. And the culture of the classroom is especially that. Especially foreign teachers of foreign languages think that they are the gods of the classroom and that they do perfect, but sometimes that is not so. And having a mentor helps us see that reality.
Okay, so as Clarissa has just said, having a mentor is not a luxury, but it's a blessing, right? As we're running short of time, we'd like to close this presentation. So with this idea that we brought at the very beginning, if we want students to feel confident using English, then teachers must feel confident teaching it. And we just wish this presentation can bring some light into your own practice, and that you can go on working with teachers, try to create a community within your school or within your own context, and that our experience can help you grow and can help you develop into a better teacher. Thank you very much for your attentive listening, and we wish you all a great year.
And of course, we hope you get in contact with us. Thank you, British Council, for trusting us in this presentation. And we are here to help you. If you have any questions, we will answer them.
Right. And if you have any other comments or questions and you'd like to know a little bit more about the program, we can answer them. So there's information where you can find us. Thank you very much again, and have a great year.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Thank you so very much, Claudia and Clarissa. We have lovely messages in the chat. Lots of people mentioning who and who that teacher who supported them was. So that's lovely to read. But first off, I know that we were discussing before this session a bit about the impact of this program that you carried in the province. So do you have any information about the impact or the feedback or the results that you got from this mentoring program?
Yes, Mariela, I don't know if you have the slides to show some of the graphs. We wanted to show some the latest results that we have. And here we have a slide with the impacts of the mentoring program. You can see there are the bars for for each of one of the schools we have been working with. And if you go to slide number 3, or you can see here in slide number 2, the comparison, right? The before and after, you will see in blue the bars for the students who failed the subject in 2024 and how those numbers fell, right, in 2025 that are in orange. And you can see the results of this work that was very systematic, right? We have done during this year with more than 200 classes observed. We've worked with about 26 teachers and we covered more than 750 students, right? If you go to slide number 3, you will see the improvement, right? Or the impact with percentages. In school number 1 there, I'm not able to see, but more than 63%, am I saying it right? I see it very, very...
Yeah, 67,
Small,
almost
right.
70. Then you've got
63% in school number 1, 55% in school number 2, 46% in school number 3, and 24% in school number 4. So you can see a reduction of over 50% in the numbers, right, that dropped as regards the results that we got in these 4 schools, again, I'm going to say, in 2024, right? So we are really satisfied, at least with these 4 schools. We can see that there was a change, or there has been a change, there is an impact. And although Clarissa has been telling you some of the drawbacks that we have had, because this is experience and this is very dynamic, and we know that we hope to continue working with the program this year, and if we can implement this again, we know that we are going to face new challenges, as the challenges you are going to face in your schools, with your groups, with your new groups this year. But again, I'd like to insist on the importance of the safe environment for the teachers, that teachers can collaborate and that they can become the best version of themselves if they feel they can work in a safe atmosphere and that they can trust each other.
Let me tell you something, Mariela. From the comments, we see that many of the participants have written that their mentors were their teachers. So here we need to face the reality that we do not need an experienced astronaut that comes and lands on our school and works magic. We need just the helping hand of another teacher. And those were our 4 beautiful, fantastic teachers, Arapey, Mariana, Janina, and Fede. Those are their names because they are asking to. And they worked the magic, but just because they worked together with them, and they worked better with the ones who allowed them to work. Well, but that is life. And of course, authorities from the institutions are a key component of this program too. If they are open-minded and if they see that we can make small changes, well, everything is easier.
Okay, we have a lot of questions about the inner workings of this mentoring program. Erika asks in the chat, who are the mentors? Are they from the same school or from another place? Gabriela is asking, are they hired by the ministry? Marce asks, are they paid for mentoring hours? So these are all things that come into play when we're thinking, okay, wow, I would like to do that in my province, in my district, in my school. So can you tell us a little bit, without, of course, going into detail, how this was set up and where you got those mentors from?
Well, the teachers were not from the same school. They were outsiders, let's say. They were selected from a great number of teachers, and they passed, as Clavia said in the presentation, they studied a lot to do this, and they are not paid. The fact is that teachers will understand this. They were comisionados, they were en comisión de servicio, which means they started going into this program, and another teacher went into their schools to teach their classes. So they continued receiving their salary for the number of hours they already have, but they change their activities. And well, that is also a great challenge, because you have to make the magic of finding one teacher with one timetable, and the teacher or the teachers who are going to be observed matching the same timetable. So it's not an easy task, but it can be done.
Right. And they have a lot of work to do outside the classroom, because they have to fill in grids, the observation grids. give feedback, write down reports, I don't know, complete charts, analysis, and all that stuff, because we have to hand in, how can I say, lots of reports to our authorities.
Which, it was worth writing them, because the ministry is incredible, and they give us a lot of support, and they let us do that is completely incredible. And it's I don't know, it's very important for us, so as to feel safe doing what we know it has to be done, right? And sorry, but I want to thank someone who said that was looking into our books, and it says, I have just browsed the books and it's fantastic. Thank you very much. The team, which is at the office, is fantastic, and we produce them also with other teachers from the province, and they are not paid. Lots of our activities are not paid, but they receive a paper saying that they participated, a resolución ministerial, saying that they participated in this or that activity, and that gives them a number of points so as to increase in their career.
Safe framework as well.
And those books, both Made in Corrientes and the other one escapes me, but these are downloadable books that say, if I'm a teacher, not in Corrientes, but in Entre Rios, can I use the book? Can I read the book?
Absolutely.
Can I download it?
Absolutely, and both of them, well, all our books, the books that we have produced in the office, which are many, and
more than 20.
More than 20, you will be able to find books about emotional intelligence, about games in the classroom, about Portuguese and Guarani. You are all invited to read them because they can be downloaded for free.
From which website?
From the website of the Ministry of Education.
We are going to put it. Yes. Yeah, there we are going to upload.
Okay, when you leave the live stream, you can go into the chat, and maybe you can, well, I don't know if you can leave the link, because we have a bit of a restriction on posting links. In the
probably.
Okay. Give the link to Lily, and Lily can share the link to the website where people can look at these materials and get familiarized with more elements of your program, which is really impressive. We are very much out of time.
Sorry.
So we are going to end with a comment left by Selina in the chat, who said that it was a very clear description of the situation, which happens everywhere. This is so very useful. She mentions, thanks for putting the topic on the table. She says, we have to do something, and trust is the key word. And I think that this is something that you conveyed in a very articulate way.
Okay. And Alejandra is from Paraguay, and she asked if the books are appropriate, and they are perfect for her.
Brilliant. So let's get Lily those links so we can post them in the chat and share them as well with the teachers. Thank you both so much for sharing this wonderful experience. It was an honor to have you. And we are going to take a 1-minute break before we go to our next session. So see you.
Thanks, Mariela. You rock. You are the team rock.
Thank you very much, Mariela, for everything. Love you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, welcome back. Thank you for staying. I can see that there are still many questions for Claudia and Clarissa in the chat, so feel free to reach out directly to them. I follow their account for the coordinación on Instagram, which is Acciones EIB, B larga, for Educación Intercultural Bilingüe. So from Acciones EIB on Instagram, you can reach out to them directly. Or you can rewind the video and look at their contact details that they shared on the screen. So let's continue with our program. Our next speaker, I'm delighted to introduce, is Estefanía Ferrero. Estefanía is an English teacher and lecturer with a degree in English conference interpreting and is currently completing her degree in ELT. She holds a diploma and specialization in comprehensive sexuality education and is pursuing a postgraduate degree in genders, feminisms, and human rights. A teacher trainer and researcher, she has presented at national and international conferences on integrating comprehensive sexuality education into English language teaching and related topics. And today she will be with us talking about how ELT teachers can meaningfully contribute to gender equity through everyday planning, materials, and interactions. So a big welcome to Estefanía.
Thank you very much, Mary, for that kind presentation. Thank you, British Council. It's such a pleasure and honor to be here together with such interesting colleagues. We have been listening to very, very enlightening presentations this week. So I hope you keep enjoying this. So here we go. So this is Advancing Gender Equity through ELT. My plan, a little bit of what we will be doing today. First of all, pedagogical framework, right? Then why gender equity in ELT? The why, right? The reason behind. Then we're going to see some strategies to advance gender equity through ELT. That is to say, the how. How can I take this to my classroom next Monday? Okay, we're going to be seeing integrating it with curricular contents and problematizing null and hidden curriculum together with using emerging situations. Finally, we're going to be reflecting a little bit on our role as educators from a critical lens and some Q&A. As for pedagogical frameworks, we're going to be relying on critical pedagogies. Those of Freire, Bell Hooks, social justice, critical consciousness, and practices of freedom will be concepts that will be fundamental here. Now, why? Why gender equity in ELT? As for Argentina and its legal and legislative framework, you know that we do have a law. This is Law 26,150. And it establishes that it's mandatory for all schools and levels. It's an obligation, of course, it's going to be age appropriate. And according to international frameworks, such as UNESCO guidelines, comprehensive sexuality education will involve a broad understanding of sexuality, including cognitive, emotional, physical, and social aspects of sexuality. So one of the axes is gender perspective. It's going to be intertwined with diversity, body and health, affectivity, and rights. And this is why it needs a cross-curricular approach. All interpersonal interactions and relationships are part of every field and every subject, and these are permeated by power relations, which are by definition asymmetrical. This is according to UN Human Rights Council. Therefore, we're going to need to use a gender lens and in all subjects. We also have international frameworks that support our law. And even if you are working in a country which does not count on a law, you still have this international support, such as UN Sustainable Development Goals, recommendations by CEDAW, taking into account education and its role to change gender stereotypes and to advance on gender equity. Now, let's move on the how, right? We've seen theory, probably we know theory, but Perhaps this is something that happens to you. Perhaps you're not so sure on how to do it in your lesson, how to plan it, how to include it in our classrooms, right? We have so much workload, so many things to cover, so many emerging situations that come up. Now, how do we tackle, how do we advance gender equity in our lesson? The idea is that today you take away strategies that you can implement, tools ready to use, and of course, tools you will adapt to your school, to your reality. So let's see the how. Let me know in the comments if this has happened to you, if you have felt that you were ready, that you were excited about introducing gender equity in your lesson, but you just didn't know how. Let's see if these strategies I'm going to show you can be of any help. Number 1, integration of gender equity with explicit curricular contents. This is an idea by Morgade, 2019. Now, the idea here is to intertwine, to integrate our ELT contents and skills, whatever we need to teach, together with, alongside with, simultaneously taught with gender equity, gender perspective in this case. We're going to teach them together. So let's see an example here. Secondary school, right? Talking about past actions. Imagine this is our curricular content. This is our focus. We need to teach this. Now, we're going to give it together. We're going to intertwine it with gender equity. That is to say, we're not going to add extra or additional workload. It's not going to be something taught in a separate way, but it's going to be taught at the same time. That is to say, we're not going to be departing from our curricular expectations, which is, of course, what we must comply with. So, for example, we're going to be working with inspirational women, right? And talking about past actions. Instead of my typical example, Peter woke up and Peter went to the park, which is necessary and which may be a good starting point, why not using inspirational women afterwards? This is an example of a worksheet I have created myself together with the help of AI and ChatGPT. This has been used in second year, it's level B1+. But the idea here is for you to use it as a trigger. My idea is to share these worksheets as starting points. You may use them, you may adapt them, you may change the level, you may change whatever you think is not that appropriate for your school, for your level, for your students. Since you are the one that is the teacher and you know the group, you know the context, you know their reality. And nowadays, with the help of AI, we can make these changes and adapt material very easily. Now, I'm going to be rushing a bit because we have so much to cover, but you can come back and you can watch the presentation again. You can access to the slides, so feel free to go over them if there's something that, it was not that clear, right? So to start with, in this worksheet, we worked with a warm-up, with some speaking, right? Asking students, okay, do you know any inspirational and important women in history and science? What did they do? How many can you name, right? Do you think science is for all genders and why? So after this, we're going to be doing a reading comprehension exercise. Here is a text I've created with the help of ChatGPT, summary, Florence Nightingale. Now, after reading the text and after perhaps working with the filling the gaps exercise, questions and answers, we can focus on past actions and our simple past, and so on and so forth. And we can also have critical questions embedded in this worksheet with gender perspective, with gender equity, right? As in, were women expected to study at the time? What do you think society expected them instead, right, to do instead? Now, a little bit of intersectionality, that is to say, let's think about other categories. What if she had been poor? What if she had another skin color? What about her gender identity, right? How these factors contributed to her being able to achieve whatever she has achieved? What if she had a disability? Here is another one with another scientist, Marie Curie. You may ask more questions, right? Again, then you can come back to my presentation. But the point is, we need to foster some critical thinking skills, a very important 21st century skill. So why do you think it's important to learn about these women? Do we have these women represented in our books, right? Do you think that what happened to them was fair, right? If Marie Curie was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize, well, was it because she was not, women were not intelligent at the time, or why was it? Did they have the same opportunities, right? So it's all about asking questions and creating an opportunity for students to think critically and debate. In this case, together with talking about past actions. And at the same time, we are building both linguistic competence together with critical thinking skills. Another example, imagine we need to work with obligation, permission, prohibition, modality. Okay, we're gonna intertwine it and teach it with a gender equity lens. And here we have an image you can obtain on the internet. Here we have the reference, and we have very famous pictures indeed, actually about rules for teachers in the past. So as you can see, there were many things that they could not do, right? They may not do this, right? Or you may not do that, and so on and so forth. So you can work with modality, and at the same time, you can work with gender stereotypes, gender equity, right? You can, after working with grammar, you can create, debate. You can make them think critically, right? And Edelstein will tell us, well, let's add whatever is not in our textbooks, right? Let's move from being just a mere executor, doing whatever the book says, from being an active constructor, right? Co-constructing, co-authoring the book. Adding, for example, special dates, right? A worksheet about International Women's Day, about Pride Month, about many other important dates connected with gender, right? Another example, imagine we have to teach personality traits, right? Describing people's personality. Well, we're going to be talking about gender equity at the same time. We can work with adjectives. We can do our vocabulary focus activity and then some critical questions. It could be speaking, it can be writing. Then we can share, right? Which of these adjectives, which of these words are typically, traditionally associated with women, which with men, right? And of course, we need to say that these are not the only two genders, right? There are more. Now, how do you feel if you don't fit? How do you feel, or how might you feel, right, if you didn't fit, right? How can these ideas be harmful, right? How can these stereotypes and rules lead to discrimination, inequality, and violence? This has been used in third year, B2 level. However, again, we can adapt it depending on your group. And then we can have a debate. We have already talked about women, but let's talk about boys and diversities, other masculinities. What happens, right? Why can't we say, why do we say that boys can't cry, right? And we can engage our students in a debate about masculinities, right? About feminized identities, diversities, about their mental health, what happens, right, when we cannot express our emotions. We can talk about traditional and toxic masculinities, right? And even though men reap many benefits and privileges from this system, it also has a cost, right? So we can engage in this kind of conversations. Perhaps you have engaged in some gender equity talks with your students and you have seen some resistance, right, from boys or even girls, and it may be connected with this part, right? But we should show that men and boys are not the enemies here. The system is bad for all of us. So let me know in the chat, let me know in the comments if this has happened to you. So this is a strategy to involve them in our conversation, even though it should be said that, of course, this system affects women and diversities in a disproportionate way. However, that is not to say that men and boys are not affected. And this has to do with the study of masculinities. This is by Connell. And it's also important to say that these traits we're talking about are cultural and social, not natural, right? Let's move on. Another example. Imagine we have to talk about hypothetical situations. Well, let's intertwine it with gender equity. For example, this is a worksheet, B2, third year, right? We were talking about hypothetical situations and conditional type 2, right? So we're going to be talking about healthy and unhealthy relationships as a warm-up, right? Can you describe a healthy relationship? What about an unhealthy one? And then perhaps after teaching and seeing rules for the second conditional, we have different scenarios and we can have a role play, right? And students have to create sentences using second conditional and creating their imaginary situations. In these cases, they're going to see cards with signs of unhealthy behavior. And they have to say why, they have to discuss why they aren't healthy. And okay, what would you do if you were in that situation? What would you do if this was your friend? How would you feel if this happened to you, right? This can be in pairs, in groups, and then a plenary. So we can see examples of possessiveness. Your partner won't let you go out with your friends because they always want you to be with them. Control, dominance. Your partner constantly checks your phone. Your partner checks all your social media. Your partner doesn't let you go out wearing a short skirt. Here we can talk about imbalance and power relationships. Power relations and dynamics. Your partner is constantly rude to you and makes you feel worthless. So here we see different kinds of violence. And then, of course, always some food for thought, right? They can work in groups and then a plenary, we can share, they can debate, but we need to equip them with tools to think critically, right? To think about why possessiveness and jealousy are unhealthy. The different forms of violence. Violence is not only physical, it can also be verbal, psychological, and so on and so forth, right? Why would it be difficult to realize we are in an unhealthy relationship, right? What is the role of our friends? What about asking for help? Trusting, right, an adult? And we need to highlight the fact that this can happen across all genders. However, there is a certain pattern, right? We need to work with this. There is a certain type of couple, right, in the cis heteronormative environment where men tend to be or act with these unhealthy behaviors towards women, right? And we can make some parallelisms with what happens in society. Right? How do people in an unhealthy relationship feel? How do people in a healthy one feel? So here we're talking about affectivity as well. It is fundamental that after these moments, after these activities, we have a debate, and there is a very important thing for the teacher to do. This information needs to be there. There needs to be the authority. There needs to be somebody saying, okay, this is the gender equity content. Now, we have worked with integration of explicit curricular contents. Now, let's see strategy number 2, problematizing material and practices, right? Santa is going to give us these 2 very powerful concepts, null and hidden curriculum. So we're going to see who is being left out through seemingly neutral practices and materials, especially our textbook, our material. Of course, it's going to help us for socialization and to spread knowledge, but it's also going to generate values, norms, and ideas. So we need to ask ourselves about representation, underrepresentation, misrepresentation, which realities are shown and which ones are excluded, which ones are shown but through stereotypes. So let's problematize textbooks and our own material through a critical lens. Let's see pictures, examples, units, text as an opportunity for a teachable and a learning moment. So let's problematize whatever we see. What about the pictures in primary school, in secondary school, to all levels, when we have the unit about jobs and professions, which images are shown? What about sport? What do we see? And again, with an intersectional lens as well. Do we see disability? Do we see different genders? Do we see different skin colors, different ethnicities? Appearance, clothes, which kind of bodies are shown? Which ones are left out? Are these real bodies? Do we all look the same? right? Colors, toys, family, which types of families are shown, which kind of relationships are shown. What about money? Even if we think that the unit perhaps is difficult to connect with gender equity, we may think of, okay, how do men and women and other genders distribute their times differently? What happens with housework? And so on and so forth. Everything can be taught from this perspective. What about the couples shown? What about money, time? And again, we need to have an intersectional lens. Skin color, class, gender identity, age, ability, body size, immigration status. So it does not matter if our book has problematic pictures or does not have pictures of a certain group. Maybe what really matters is the teacher. The teacher making one question can make all the difference. So ask your students, hey, have you thought about this? Do you see something here? What is weird in these pictures? Can you tell that there is a group that is not shown? Or do you think that this represents us? Do you think this is reproducing this? So the fact that you make students think critically will change the textbook effect entirely. So it's not the book, but the teacher. Let's visualize, let's naturalize examples. Let's use gender equity on our blackboards. I am teaching possession, okay, Sophie's car. Let's hack, let's break stereotypes in our exams, in homework, in exercises, in our everyday practice. Do I introduce myself with my pronouns? Do I ask my students their pronouns? Or do I assume their cis heteronormativity, right? Do I reproduce stereotypes or binarism when I speak? Okay, let's play girls against boys, right? What am I doing there? Have you ever thought about this little change, these little interactions in your practice? Let me know in the chat. Do we use the word family instead of mom? Do we teach the personal pronoun they, which may not be in our book? Or instead of he, right, as the male generic pronoun. So let's create safe spaces, and at the same time, let's express our zero tolerance towards discrimination and violence. And this has to do with strategy number 3, using emerging situations for 2007, right? So if we hear a comment, or if we witness aggression through slurs, through shaming, or if we see students, or other teachers, colleagues, or ourselves reproducing stereotypes, okay, let's intervene. Let's express that it is wrong. Let's ask a question, right? And of course, let's repudiate and express zero tolerance towards discrimination, or what sometimes students like to call jokes, which are not jokes. They are forms of aggression. So let's challenge humor, right? And let's use incidents in and outside the classroom. In my class, if I am during break and I see something, let's intervene. Everything is a teachable moment. So let me know in the chats if this has ever happened to you. Have you ever seen or witnessed a situation, but you did not know perhaps how to address it? What we know is that there cannot be pedagogical silence. We just can't afford it. Remember that silence also teaches. And if I don't do anything, then I am perpetuating it. So we need to ask ourselves, right? Who am I benefiting with my teaching? As a recap, strategies for you to take to your classroom next Monday: integrating contents, problematizing material and practices, and using emerging situations. So I would like you to tell me in the comments, what's one takeaway that you will be implementing in your lessons? And some food for thought. Remember that there is no such thing as not teaching gender equity. Remember that not teaching also educates. Even if we think that we are not teaching it, we're giving a message. We're saying this is taboo, this is irrelevant, and so on and so forth. And remember that this is our duty as teachers, and it is our students' right. Otherwise, we are failing them. Remember that students are change agents towards a more inclusive, fair, free, and equitable world. So we need to start co-building skills with them, the skills that will equipment towards this path. And remember, we're teaching a language, but this is something I always say. Okay, what are we doing with that language? In which way are students going to use that language? Who am I benefiting with my teaching? Whose voices are being heard? So let's make ELT a site of critical reflection and transformation, right? We're talking about English lessons that transform. It's more than mere language training, and it's much more than linguistic competence. We're teaching all the time. And we have a great opportunity here to advance gender equity and comprehensive sexuality education. So let's use our lessons to transform, to teach with purpose. And remember, as Paulo Freire once said, education does not change the world, education changes people, people change the world. Here are some references you can check. Right. And I would like to thank you all for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all your kind comments in the chat, for all your contributions. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn. You can contact me, and I would be delighted to hear from you, to keep exchanging experiences, to work together, to think of new ways to advance gender equity through ELT. So thank you very much, and I would love to hear what you have to say. Let's have some questions and answers, right? I would love you to tell me your takeaways, or if you have something you would like to discuss, a question. So let's go on working together. I would like to hear about you.
All right. Thank you so much, Estefania. And we have lots of comments in the chat. I know you're reading, so where shall we start? We have a lot of teachers sharing their own examples of how they have applied some of the things that you have mentioned or suggested in the chat. Carolina, for example, mentions she once taught the present simple with professions and used images of women for some jobs which are typically done by men.
That's fantastic. Also with housework, I think that's an amazing way. So you're talking about routines, housework, and you're, again, intertwining it together with gender equity. So that's a fantastic example. Thank you very much for that contribution.
These are examples perhaps of things that we can do at lower levels, because maybe when you present ideas like, okay, having a debate about this or that sounds like, oh, I don't have upper intermediate students. But then you can do it simple.
Definitely, Mary, totally. We can, with books, with picture books, with the colors, with clothes. This can be done when we teach professions, when we teach colors, when we teach costumes, sports. So there's no need to wait until secondary school, because we need to start empowering our students and equipping them with the right tools from the very beginning, since kindergarten. Because if not, then it is much harder, because they have not built the right foundation, right, to tackle more complex topics such as roles and stereotypes and violence, gender-based violence. So by tackling these seemingly simpler examples, because it needs to be age appropriate, then we're building just the right platform from which then we can keep building together more competence. So thank you.
Absolutely. We have many examples. Well, Carolina also mentioned having used a story called Artsy Boys and Smelly Girls, which sounds delightful.
Definitely look it up. I haven't read it, but thank you very much for your contribution. I think this is fantastic. As a teacher, getting to brainstorm and just exchanging material, because it's not an easy job. And as one of the comments, somebody was saying something like, okay, we don't have this in books that much, which is true. And we have so many things to do, so many papers to grade, so many things to plan. And the idea is to work together, to collaborate, because then it is much easier and we can help each other out. So thank you.
Some other examples that we have, Eliana mentions this idea of having used biographies about influential women in history. Right. And Micaela asks, there are so many influential women in science, computing, and IT that we can talk about. So lots of that. Javier mentions Hansel and Gretel as an example, and how it's a nice story to show how the girl ends up saving the boy.
I'm thinking about, sorry, Mary, I'm thinking this is fantastic. Thank you for your contribution. And I'm thinking that we can use fairy tales or classic stories. We can even help students rewriting perhaps the ending. Roald Dahl has a wonderful collection, and there's a poem I love that is Little Red Riding Hood with a gender perspective, and there are many, many other politically incorrect bedtime stories. I think it's called. There are many, many resources we can find online, we can use, so we can hack whatever we need to teach. Imagine I am giving a text, a book, a picture book that perhaps has controversial ideas or outdated ideas. Well, let's reframe it, right? A movie, a song. So thank you.
Yes, if you haven't read Revolting Rhymes by Roald Dahl.
Revolting Rhymes. That's the name of the whole collection. That's fantastic.
And very funny.
So good.
And very nice even to work with young children, because it is very good. It's funny even for children. So much recommended. Also, Javier mentions this idea of Lexi's evolution in jobs and professions as a good way to reflect on roles of women in society, and how maybe we don't teach policeman anymore, and nowadays we teach police officer. But it's nice to tell students why and to tell them what it used
Evolution, to be. Right? And also something that I use a lot, when my students call me Miss, I tell them, no, you can call me Steffi. This might be a bit informal depending on your school or depending on the country you're living in, and that's okay. But I actually tell them the story behind, right? Why are we called Miss? Why never Mrs., right? And we talk about this idea of women not being able to work as a teacher at first, and having a husband, right? It was one thing or the other. So we work on the origin of Miss, right? So every moment is a teaching opportunity, right? We just have to wear this lens. There was this comment which said something about being innovative. And I think that perhaps we just need to change the way we see innovation, or perhaps we need to change our focus. Sometimes we're thinking that we need to do a lot, and we need to do something new, and we need to demolish everything. And sometimes that's not just it. That would take too much work. Sometimes we don't have enough time. Perhaps our effort won't be enough. So sometimes it's just about reframing what we have, using the right lenses, so that we co-build these skills with students, right? So perhaps innovation can come in that form. Perhaps that's the real secret of innovation, right? Not thinking of something super big and glamorous and Disneyland-like, but perhaps it can be our everyday lesson plan, the way we introduce ourselves, the way I build my bond and my rapport with my students, right? It's in the little things.
Yes, somebody in the chat had mentioned these little things having big impact. I think that's a good takeaway. I'm afraid we don't have a lot more time, but Steffi, if you can, do go through the comments, because there are some interesting things to pick up and keep the conversation going after the session.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind words in the chat. It's been a pleasure to read and to learn with you. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Thank you, British Council. This has been an amazing opportunity to work with such amazing colleagues. Thank you, Mary. Your help has been amazing throughout the whole process. You rock. Thank you very much. And thank you all. So let's keep in touch. Feel free to contact me. Let's keep building knowledge together. Feel free. I would love to share more material, to learn with you, to exchange material ideas, to brainstorm together. Feel free. It will be my pleasure. So thank you.
Great. And this is a great lead into our next session. So thank you again, Estefania.
Thank you.
A 1 minute break again while we prepare our next speaker to come to the stage. So see you in a minute.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. welcome back once again. So let's continue with our program. For our next session, we're going to welcome Agustina Laporta. Agustina is an EFL teacher from the city of Buenos Aires, holding tenure at a state-run secondary school. She's a graduate of Instituto de Educación Superior en Lenguas Vivas Juan Ramón Fernández. She's now training there to become a teacher educator. She completed her Master's of Education in TESOL at the University of Exeter as a Hornby Trust Scholar. She's very active in APIVA, and she likes to collaborate for equitable access to quality education. She founded the website educacionylenguas.com and is launching an online forum to foster collaborative material development among colleagues. So today with us, Agustina will examine how digital technologies through asynchronous communication can enable collaborative reflection as a form of context-driven professional development. So a warm welcome, Agustina.
Thank you, Maria. I'm really excited to be here with you. I'm really grateful to be speaking to fellow Argentinian teachers and teachers from all over the world. I haven't been in the chat. Thank you for being curious enough to be here. So in this 30-minute presentation, you will gain insights into your own professional development. I'm not sure how to present the slides. Can you help me?
Yes, Alice, we can't see you for some very strange reason. So let's see if you can, I don't know, come out and come back again, or refresh or do something. This is very strange. I don't know if people in the chat can let us know, but all I see is like a green rectangle where your camera should be.
I do, because I can see myself.
Oh, you can? I don't know. People
yes,
can.
I can see myself next to you.
If you can see us or not. Maybe it's just us. Let me take a look at my YouTube, and in the meantime, Lily, you can put the slides on screen so we can.
What about now?
No, it's still the same. Yes, people in the chat agree that it's green. So yeah, let's try.
And come back again, but
I would suggest so. Maybe it's a permissions thing. And in the meantime, because I know today we hadn't had any glitches, so this is a good opportunity to say hi to everyone again, to remind people to connect with the speakers through social media, through LinkedIn, to keep the conversations going. Just now, Estefi was talking a lot about lessons with a gender lens, and Agustina is still green. So I would encourage people to visit teachingenglish.org, which is the British Council website that has hundreds of free to access lesson plans for all levels. And we do have very nice lesson plans that are specifically designed to address gender. Next month, we have International Women's Day coming up. So there will be a lot of extra resources to talk about women in history, to talk about what we mentioned, the jobs, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to read some of the comments in the chat. People mentioning that students love being heard. That's true. And Estefania, who was just here with us in a second, mentions that sometimes a question just does the trick, and that's a great comment. Absolutely agree. The session that we had just now is very linked to a session that we had yesterday with Melissa Miralles on global citizenship education that also addressed this idea that it's our responsibility as teachers not just to teach the language, but to address these bigger topics. So I would much encourage you, if you didn't attend yesterday's session, to go back on our YouTube channel and check. Aus, in the meantime, if you're listening and this is still not working, you can stay where you are and also connect through your phone so we can see you through your phone and you can continue looking at the slides and all that on the computer. That might help. So back to our program, the session that we had today on gender, very much linked to yesterday's session on global citizenship education. So I would encourage you to work on both. Rewatch the bits that you need to rewatch to look at the materials and the examples in more depth, and to go into your new school year with some of these ideas to apply in the classroom. All right. Also, going back to our chat, we always have questions about certificates. When are we getting certificates? How can I get a certificate for having attended ELT Week? So on Friday, which is tomorrow, which is our last day, towards the end of the session, Lily will put a link in the chat with a survey for you to complete. In this survey, you will be asked your name, surname, email address, and that's what we use to issue your certificates. So please type them carefully and in the way you want them shown in the certificate. So for example, if you want your certificate to have your name with a capital letter at the start, make sure you type it that way because automation. Also in that survey, you will have some questions to give us feedback on the event. And we want to know what you think about the sessions that you have watched. So we very much appreciate that you take the time to complete that. If you are not here on Friday, you can either watch the Friday recording and use the chat replay to get the link, or if you registered for this event, you can go on your email where you have, I suppose, been getting reminders every day. It's like today's day 3, today's day 4, we are about to start, we have just started. Oh, there you go. Yes.
Can you see me? Oh, no.
Yes. So people will get an email with the link to fill in the attendance survey. If you're on 2 computers, one might echo the other one. So mute one of the 2, I would suggest. And
What about now?
Okay, that
Can
works.
you hear me?
We can see you, we can hear you, we can see your slides. I think that's
Okay, thank you.
all we need.
Okay, this is very uncomfortable, but I'm going to start. Okay, so what I'm going to give you is like a session for you to reflect on your own professional development online. So let's see, I'm kind of crouching. Sorry, I have 2 computers. Now everything makes more sense now. So I ask you to think of one space online that you can think about throughout the whole session. So think of one online professional space you're participating in right now. It can be formal or informal. So it can be a Facebook group, or maybe you're studying at the teacher training college still, but have that space in mind throughout the session. I'm sorry, but the amount of screens I have right now. So we're going to try to go quickly through the opportunities of online professional spaces. They're kind of obvious, but I feel the need to point them out. Then we're going to reflect on our teacher engagement online, and we're going to address the challenges we also have in these spaces. And then I'm going to share you some key concepts I used to build my own online community for reflective collaborative practice. I'm going to briefly mention my forum as a response, and I'm going to show you the design principles, which you can use for your own professional development, even if you're not, even if you don't have your own community, because I think we can build communities online. And then takeaways and Q&A. So if you have any questions, remember you can write them in the chat, and then Mary will ask me those. So, opportunities. One of the benefits of online communities of practice is that we can keep learning regardless of location, time, or financial constraints. So this event, for example, is free. And I have seen some people from Bogota, even though it's addressed for Argentine teachers, because everyone, everywhere in the world can watch this, right? Also, some people may watch this live, but you may be watching this later, today, tomorrow, next week, next year, who knows? Maybe I will have gray hair and you will be watching this video. So this is one of the most important aspects, but I also think that these professional communities help us to collaborate because we can connect with peers, we can share resources. Just 2 minutes ago, you were sharing lots of interesting resources. I'm going to read the chat again. Then we can also discuss classroom issues, and we can support each other. So let's reflect on our engagement online, because I want you to answer in the chat. You have to choose one of these 4 options, but please choose the one that best fits your situation right now. So why do you use social media as a teacher? A, to find teaching ideas and materials. B, to follow colleagues or experts and keep up with new trends. C, to share your own materials or classroom experiences. Or D, to discuss, collaborate, and solve teaching problems with others. So choose the one that best describes you right now. Okay, yes, I'm seeing lots of A. Of course, this is the start of the year. We're all doing this. I am doing this. Someone is doing B, to follow colleagues and experts. I try to follow some colleagues on Instagram, but mostly LinkedIn as well. Some is saying D. Okay, so we have fewer C's or D's, but I will show you that I will give you this is kind of a quiz and I will give you the results. But remember, we are all curious here. So we are kind of like the special group who is curious and wants to learn. Yes. So I am sharing you this. This is from Sarah Brestridge. She's an academic. And she came up with 4 categorizations of teachers online. But this depends on how we view professional learning online. So according to how teachers see their professional learning online, they're going to act differently. I'm looking for the answer, sorry. So let's see. So at the top, we have the social reasoning. It depends on if you believe that you are that you have to learn just for yourself or that you learn with others. And on the horizontal line, continuum, it's whether we see learning as like taking or contributing, right? So I'm going to review the results, but this is not to judge anyone, not even ourselves, because we're mostly A's right now, but to reflect on how we can improve our professional development, how we can make it more effective. So if you answered mostly A's, you're probably an info consumer because you seek knowledge. You seek knowledge, you seek ideas, but rarely contribute back. So you're there to learn, but not to interact. If you answered B, you might be an info networker. So you connect with others to share resources, usually through reposts or links, but tend not to create original content. And if you answered C, you may be a self-seeking contributor because you share your own work, mainly to get feedback, support, or recognition. So you contribute, but for personal gain. So in this example, I am a self-seeking contributor because I want this on my CV, right? I want this on my social media platforms. And you right now, at this moment, you're consuming. And then if you later share this webinar with colleagues, then you're an info networker. Now, if you answer D, that's kind of like the holy grail because you're a vocationalist. Because you do everything the other types do, but you're also actively committed to co-constructing knowledge and contributing to the growth of the professional community. So I hope this graphic inspires you to find different ways of engaging online as a professional teacher. So, for example, right now, we're using a platform. We're streaming on YouTube. So I set the agenda. There's very little room for us to construct knowledge together. Yes, I'm trying to read the chats, but we have a set time, so I'm like kind of rushing it. And so we have very little room to construct knowledge, to discuss ideas, to come up with new ideas as a team. So it's not about us as individuals. It's not that we are self-centered or we don't want to collaborate, but the platforms themselves can limit our collaboration. So our beliefs about what professional learning online is also shaped by the possibilities afforded by the platforms we use. So although some online spaces can enable collaboration and co-construction, this is not automatically the case. So this woman, Sarah Prestridge, says that many platforms foster a competitive or consumerist approach. And she warns that in some platforms such as Teachers Pay Teachers or Pinterest, there is a perspective of that believes that knowledge can be owned. And it's kind of problematic because if we believe that knowledge can be owned and consumed, so I own the knowledge, someone else consumes it, so how can we create in a collaborative way? Let me change the slide. So we see that we're getting this problematic perspective. So existing platforms have limiting features. For example, for authentic collaboration, because of these consumerist or competitive cultures, but also the fear of being judged. Maybe you felt pressure to answer D, or you were ashamed of answering A because you were, I don't know, you didn't want to feel judged by others. Sometimes we don't want to share our struggles because we think that we are going to be perceived as unprofessional or unqualified. And on the other hand, sometimes we have good ideas, but we think, this idea is too simple. I'm not going to share it. It's not worth it. So this fear of being judged, because on social media, everything is shiny and new and original, then we don't want to share. But this trumps authentic collaboration. And then existing platforms also have a problem with supporting reflection and change. Because sometimes we can reflect on our own and we can change our practice in the classroom, but do platforms like existing platforms actually foster this? I don't think so. And then there's the problem with content organization. These feed type platforms such as Instagram or Facebook rely on the newest and most relevant content. So if the content was posted last week, maybe it doesn't get viewed. If you don't put a like on it, if a lot of people don't comment on it, maybe it gets lost. And then you need it. Maybe you needed that post in that particular situation, but you cannot find it. So it's a problem. So when I was doing my master's, I kept on thinking, like, how can we build reflective teacher communities online? And I came up with some concepts that I'm going to briefly present, but I think they're important. So I use them to design my platform. The first one is teacher agency. And first of all, I want you to tell you teacher agency is not leadership. Because sometimes when we think about leadership, we think, well, being a leader relies on a certain personality type, and I'm shy. No, this has nothing to do with agency. Every teacher can have agency. And also, we shouldn't confuse agency with autonomy, because we work in a system. We work for a school, we work for a government. We're not completely autonomous. But I think we should shape our own practice, because we make professional decisions. Of course, always interacting with our teaching context. It's not the same to work in a rural school than in a city. And even in the same city, we have different types of school. And in the same school, we have different types of classrooms. So we must interact with this context. And what I really like about this teacher agency concept is that we rely on building peer relationships, horizontal relationships. So we need each other in order to be agents. Well, I'm running out of battery and I cannot run. Yay! Okay, so communities of practice is a concept that you can find in a lot of places, and also in the British Council website. But I want you to reflect. Remember, I told you to think of an online space you belong to right now. I'm really interested in the domain element. So all these elements must be present. Okay. No, the problem is that my slides are on the computer, but I'm on the laptop, which is running out of battery. But I can speak. Okay. So what I'm saying is the domain is a shared interest. In your community, do you have a shared interest that all the members are committed to? Because I think that's what makes or breaks the community. So I will let you think while I plug my laptop. Think about the shared interest all the members share in your community.
Guys, this is live streaming.
This is live.
This is live TV. This is what happens.
Everything can go wrong. But
in your lesson, you have to go to a loo. So you tell your students, okay, do this worksheet while I go to the toilet. It happens. Are we all plugged in?
Yes. Okay, I'm going to continue. I hope that's it. So at the end of the session, no one is writing anything, but at the end of the session, I want you to think about the domain, because without the domain, a shared interest shared by everyone, we don't have a community. And this refers to the participate and learn tradition of teacher development. I think the two colleagues at the beginning said something along these lines, because we cannot just sit passively and expect the trainer to give us their knowledge. This has to do with agency as well. And then the last concept is communities of inquiry. This is not about self-paced or self-driven development. This concept is for higher level education, for universities, when universities started having discussion groups online. So this is a theory based on asynchronous text communication, which has its challenges, right? Yes, even if you're not live, communication in an asynchronous manner is challenging. So they came up with 3 different elements that should be interrelated. So if you're going to learn, you must construct knowledge, right? From a constructive perspective, we must construct knowledge, and we must construct it with others. But how can we construct knowledge with others? It has to be about being real together, about building trust, because nobody wants to feel like they are talking to ChatGPT. I mean, we can talk with ChatGPT, but if you're constructing knowledge with others, with people, you want to feel that they are authentic, that they are real human beings. So this element is really important. And then guiding the learning. Yes, it says teacher presence. And in our case, in the online world, there is no teacher. We have no trainer. But that doesn't mean that this presence is not important. This is a role, a function. So you, even if you don't have a formal role in that community, you can guide the learning. any participant can guide the learning because it has to do with how we guide the conversation without monopolizing, but guiding the conversation for us to learn, for us to grow, to be vocationalist, as I said, right? Yes, I told you, this is not about a formal role. But I read a lot of literature, and the communities that last are the ones that have a strong moderation. And this can be done by people who are not moderators in the formal sense, so pay attention. So making content easy to find is important. So having some kind of organization to find the content is important. Setting clear rules for interaction. Then someone needs to deepen the conversation because, yes, we all participate, but we need to have some more knowledgeable others that can clarify misunderstandings or that can help us think more critically. Also, we need to focus on accuracy because not every opinion is equal. We cannot say that we are going to teach a 4-year-old child English through grammar books, written practice drills. And also, we need to welcome newcomers, make them feel at ease, making them feel welcome, yes. And also, organizing regular activities are important to sustain enthusiasm because, for example, teachingenglish.org, or I don't remember the two web pages, have lots of information, lots of very useful resources, but these kind of events are important for us to say, okay, I'm going to go online, I'm going to interact with the community. If not, we kind of forget. So in the case of MIME Forum, so this was part of the theoretical aspect, right? I read a lot, but I wanted to make it real. And I want to make a community of practice for the development of materials. So I did a needs analysis to see if it was worth it. And yes, it was worth it because most people were like, yes, I need materials. I don't have materials. Some people were saying there is not much materials to talk about comprehensive sexuality education. For example, A1 level, it's hard, right? And the most important thing here, I think, is that 78% of the teachers who responded to the survey said that they were willing to collaborate to develop this material. So we want to collaborate. So how can we make this possible? So I came with these design principles. I designed the forum, but I understand if you don't want to design a platform from scratch, because it is stressful and time-consuming. But there is no ideal platform. So you can still use the mainstream platforms. You can create a Facebook group. You can be part of an Instagram community. It's the same. So I want you to think, when I explain the principles, I want you to think about your space, the space I told you to think about. And then in the comments, you can write some notes like, oh, I'm doing this, or I can improve my engagement online by doing this thing that I haven't been doing. So yes, this is the call to action. I forgot I have the slide. So which of these principles could realistically be implemented in your own context? Some things are obvious, but maybe we're not doing it. Everything is obvious unless you don't think about it. So first of all, we have the content structure and organization, a search bar. Some platforms don't have a search bar. Some platforms don't have a good search bar. So it becomes hard. In the case of my platform, I can add categories or sub-pages. So I can organize the material. I can have a section for materials. I can have a section for announcements and CPD events. I have a section for problems, struggles in the classroom. And what I think is useful that can be implemented even on Instagram, although I think it's very disorganized, are the hashtags, the rule of 3 hashtags. 1 hashtag for the level. Is it elementary, A1, B2? one hashtag for the topic. Are we talking about comprehensive sexuality education? Are we talking about environmental education? Are we talking about online safety, healthy food? You name the topic. And then the skill, because some activities or lesson plans are more focused on writing. Some are speaking, listening, the 4 skills. So this is the content, structure, and communication. Then I thought about the leadership. Yeah, I told you leadership was not it, but you can say leadership, agency. We need direction. So in my forum, the initial content gives you direction. For example, in some other platforms, the initial content may be more posy. Everything must be like perfect. But maybe you want to say, well, you want to welcome everyone because you want everyone to participate. In some platforms, it's like the owner of the account has more authority than the others. So maybe in a welcome message, you can create a more horizontal relationship. With the names of the categories, you're saying, okay, we're going to talk about materials. We're going to share CPT opportunities. You're setting the direction with the initial content. And also the guidelines for interaction. Because this can be set from the get-go and then modified, but nobody wants to be yelled at or mistreated. Maybe you don't want to see a million commercial ads on the feed. So we must have some guidelines for interaction. And then we must model the contributions, because people see how everyone else interacts, how everyone else organizes the material, and then we start to copy. So I think initial content helps. Then trust and sense of community. They talk about trust, about the mentorship. And in this case, everything is about of trust, but the rules of interaction, as I told you, are important, because maybe we want to collaborate, but we have different opinions about certain topics that don't have to do with the topic we're dealing with. So we say, okay, we're not going to talk about this, right? We're only going to talk about materials. And then profile picture and a short introduction helps you. So how do I know you're not a bot? Now with AI, we cannot know. But if your picture is just like this, authentic, then maybe you're like, oh, I'm talking to a real person. Even if you share the picture of your dog, you're like, oh, that's Rosita's dog. And she also always contributes in a very nice way. And then you give a short introduction. I don't know, maybe you want to share, I like long walks along the beach. Or you say, well, I love using videos in my lessons. That gives you like a sense of community and trust that the other person is real. And then the language and level of formality. So in my forum, I chose to speak in Spanish because we don't have the same level of English, and I don't want anyone to feel like they're being judged for the level of English, to be like, oh, I don't know how to express my feelings, my opinions. Just express yourself as you would in normal life. So I think that's better. And it's less formal because we're not in a training course. Okay, I'm going to wrap up. But acknowledge contributions is the most important thing, I think. Remember that a lot of platforms have these tags that you can tag people and thank them for their contribution, and also to build upon their contributions, to say, yes, I agree with you, and you give an example. Takeaways. So, sorry for the problems. Now, then you can come back and read all the principles and think how you can apply them in your own online spaces. And I also am going to flash the references, because when you come back, you can screenshot them. You can also, these are further resources you can check. And thank you for listening. You can find me at educacionylenguas.com.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Agustina. I think people very much enjoyed the very casual nature of this presentation and how authentic this was, and this is also a good reminder for people if they want to move from being info consumers to be more of the contributing type. Everybody should be applying to be a speaker at this type of event. And we always get proposals from a reduced number of teachers. I think this year for ELT Week, we had 100 and something proposals, but a lot of those proposals came from people who we already know, who are also presenting at other ELT events around this time, who are very well known. And we want to know what teachers are doing in their classrooms, in their schools. We don't want to have speakers, we want to have teachers sharing what they are doing. And this is really important for us. So if you have never been a speaker at any kind of conference, it doesn't matter. And you should still do it. So Agus, shall we take some questions, comments? I know that people were very interactive, but I can't see questions. So I'm going to get us started and ask you, where are you at the stage in developing your own platform, your own community of practice? Have you launched it yet? Is it coming?
Yes, it's coming, but it's coming for the people who responded the survey. So I'm doing the backend, which I thought had finished, but I had to set up some configuration still. And I'm going to start with people who volunteer to be moderators, etc. There are lots of roadblocks along the way, but I'm going to start with few people and then a little bit more. So if you haven't answered the survey, maybe next year you can come. Not this one. Yeah.
Your survey, where was your survey posted? Because I don't think you shared your website, but if people want
it wasn't there. It was in October last year. I started sharing it, but it's hard to moderate because it's something I haven't started, and we have to learn how to interact ourselves. So we have to come up with the culture first, and then get some people in, like more people.
Of course, and people commenting in the chat for you to send the survey. So perhaps this is something that you can send.
Yes, I cannot send the survey now, but if you follow me on Instagram, it's educacionenlenguas.com. Then it's educacionenlenguas, and then .com is the webpage. But I will tell you, the problem is that I cannot add many people because I have to start small and then with the snowball effect.
That's the idea. Yes, these things take a lot of time and effort, especially when these are voluntary projects.
Yes.
Because it's important for people to understand that we're not developing a business model or trying to sell them lesson plans, which colleagues do, and it's fine. But this is something that you're creating as a voluntary initiative, isn't it?
Yeah, we're going to use is it Creative Commons?
Mm-hmm.
So people might sell their own things, but if they're going to share it on the platform, it must be to use without paying, and then maybe they have to modify it and then acknowledge. So
that's a good strategy, and Creative Commons licenses are always very good friends of teachers. I also have to take this opportunity to plug the British Council community of practice online, which is the British Council Teacher Community on Facebook. This is a separate community from the British Council Teaching English page on Facebook. The British Council Teacher Community on Facebook is a closed Facebook group with nearly 80,000 members. And the idea is that this is member-led. Members post, I'm working with a group of this level. I would like somebody to help me with this issue. I have this challenge. So this is a very good resource if you haven't got your own community and you would like to join one. So lots of people asking, how do we apply? How do people trying to get involved? So I would suggest that you reach out to us directly on her Instagram. Is that what we are mainly channeling these things from?
Yes, I have the webpage, but maybe they want to send an email. So
okay, or through the very formal website and email route. Yes, absolutely. But do get in touch, do network, because that's also a big part of contributing to the profession. Thank you so much, Aus.
thank you,
This has been
Maria.
delightful, and I hope you enjoyed it despite the tech issues.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so I don't know if we really need to take a break. I will see what Lily has to say about this before we move on to our next session. But if we do, I promise it will be a very, very short 1-minute break. Thank you, Tina. Welcome back, and thank you for staying a bit over our initially set schedule, but I don't want you to miss the next one, and this is our last session of the day. For our last session today, I would like to introduce Maria Marta Mora. Maria Marta is a teacher, researcher, mentor, member of the steering group in Mentorship, an ICT specialist, and member of the FAPI Executive Committee. She has taught in primary and secondary schools in Buenos Aires for over 35 years, and she's also currently a speaking assessor with Anglia Examinations, and she has specialized in exploratory action research and has disseminated it in conferences, events around Argentina and beyond. She co-founded a PUS special interest group and has been a coordinator of the public school special interest group since 2023. She has authored articles in international journals like AJAL and Modern English Teacher, and book chapters also published by Mentorship. So her presentation today aims to ignite the spirit of classroom research in teachers and teacher educators, while also demystifying research and introducing the audience to the basics of exploratory action research. So a big welcome to Maria Marta Mora.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, for allowing me and letting me participate in your ELT Week Argentina. This is thank you to British Council. So now let me start with my presentation. And I hope I can keep it and look at it whenever you feel it's good for you. Well, the title of the presentation is Exploratory Action Research, and an approach by teachers for teachers. So let me tell you a little bit about this. Well, first of all, I'd like you to do a little brainstorming, and in the chat, please tell me. I know it's January. I know many teachers in Argentina are on holiday. So many teachers are still on holiday or just starting to go back to school and thinking about what's going to happen during the school year and planning things. So what we're going to discuss today is quite related to planning in a part, at least in one aspect. So let's think about what classroom puzzles are currently or usually take most of your energy as a teacher. There are many things that, as one goes working and developing things in the classroom and the classroom life itself, make you think, make you reconsider. So what are the things that set you thinking all the time, right? So feel free to write some ideas, very brief ideas in the chat. Okay, thank you. So now let me show you my plan, what we are going to discuss today in this short session. First of all, we're going to try and think of at least one possible definition for teacher research. What is teacher research? Then I'm going to tell you my first steps as a teacher researcher and as a teacher researcher. Now, later, we're going to think of how to solve some of the classroom puzzles or some of your own puzzles as a teacher, right? We're going to talk about that. Let me share the next slide with you. So the first thing to discuss is, what is teacher research? Now, let's go. Now, again, I need your participation. I'm going to read some ideas, some options for you, and please tell me if you agree with these expressions related to teacher research. So I'd like you to react in the chat to these 4 expressions. Number 1, teacher research is for academics. B, not 1, it was A before, so now for B, it's time consuming. It takes a long time to do teacher research. I'm only a teacher. D, I must share my findings in articles. You know that when a person does research, there are findings. So, one of the things that one may think is that you must share what you find in articles or in other academic contexts. So please tell me, to which ones do you react? Do you agree? All right. Thank you for your comments. Now, let's go into a definition of teacher research. Teacher research, according to Richard Smith from a text in 2018, is a bottom-up replacement for following the latest academic or commercial fashion. It's an alternative to the failures of top-down research to address issues faced by teachers. And it's an alternative to the inappropriateness of commercial solutions. It's a way to help teachers resist what they are being sold by academics and publishers, or at least become more critical as consumers. Well, what a definition! let me tell you that I'm not speaking against the academia. I'm not speaking about research with a big R, with a capital R. We are referring to teacher research, which is research that is useful and produced by teachers, right? So this is a bit of a very strong positioning, right? The one I Smith, to which I totally agree, with which I totally agree. But now let's start little by little working on the details of this. So let me go to the next slide. Look at this. In teacher research, the research questions, what we aim to research, come from a problem or puzzle in your practice. Remember that when we started, I asked you to think of the puzzles you have in your class. Okay, so let's think of those type of puzzles that are you a bit, or things that you consider as issues, right? So from those puzzles, you will create your research questions. They've got their own validity. We don't need extra validity from somewhere else, right? Why? Because they are valid, because you are creating what you need to ask. You don't need to have your questions validated from outside. They are your own questions, your own inquiries. Next, there's no need for justification from the literature. Okay, I'm not a rebel just because. I don't, or we, in teacher research, we are not against the literature, what the books about methodology say. We are not going against what other researchers have produced. What we need is to look for our own materials, our own contents, right? So we don't need to justify against an author. We don't need to explain what we have or what we are researching against another model from outside, right? The other important thing, you don't need to write an article after you do teacher research. Why? Because it's not to many people in the world. It's our own space. It's our classrooms. It's us as teachers who want to develop professionally through this way of working. And we don't have to write an article. This is not necessary. Of course, if you want to write it, you can, right? But who do you share your class English Academy? Of course, you share it with your headmaster, with the head of your school, with your colleagues from the course next door, at the teacher's room. And this is absolutely valid. We don't need to share it in any super special area or place, right? Next. Now, let me tell you about my first steps in my personal history as a teacher researcher. And let me tell you that that's why I'm here with you today. I come from the classroom. I don't come from academia, right? So I think you will understand me and I will understand you when you make your comments and your questions later on. Now, look at these two images. The one on the left is my own research. This was from 2018 when I started. I was a teacher of first year in a secondary school in Buenos Aires. And this group had a characteristic, which was that it was a secondary school that received students from many different schools, right? It was not a school where kids come from the same primary school in the same institution. So what really my issue, my concern at that moment was that how would I, at the beginning of the year, make this group of students work in a more or less even level if they came from different schools, different teachers, different areas. Some students didn't even come from schools in Buenos Aires because they had moved in our city a few months before. So what I did was, then I will tell you how I learned to do this, organize a survey, as you can see, paper-based, absolutely paper-based, very simple, with three, I think it was 3 or 4 parts. One of the parts was rank from 1 to 10. I don't remember what it was. Then I asked them to tell me which of the parts of the lessons they had was the most enjoyable for them. And well, it was a very simple instrument, a very simple tool of data collection. Now, let me tell you that this first experience in my role as a teacher researcher and as an exploratory action research teacher were collected in a book of stories by teacher researchers. But this is what I did because I wanted, not because it was absolutely necessary, right? But I mean, I'm sharing this with you because simply I want to invite you to read my own story told in first person, right? So if you have time before you start the school year, you can read the story. I think it's only 4 pages long in this book, right? You can go to the index and you will find one of the first stories there. Now, let's think about how to solve classroom puzzles and teachers' puzzles or issues or what's worrying you. So now let's go to exploratory action research proper. Well, here you will have a scheme which is adapted from Professor Jason Anderson in a video which is there, as you can see. As you can notice, there are 2 colors because there are 2 cycles, 2 different cycles, which complement each other. The traditional one is the one in light blue, which is the cycle of action, which starts when you want to plan. You know that there's something that's worrying you. There's an issue, there's something that you feel doesn't go wrong, or just something really successful and good as a school practice, as a classroom practice, and you want to check whether your practice was why it was so good, or why it didn't work, or what part of one lesson didn't work properly, for example. So you have to choose, first of all, what you're going to research. So the traditional way of acting when you have an issue is to plan what you're going to change. So first you plan, you act accordingly to what you think is going to work. Then after you have applied your change, you observe what happened. Finally, you reflect on that. And if it was okay, you continue. If it didn't work well, you can do one of two things. You can start again planning things, and let me tell you, sometimes wasting your time, or you can go to the blue part of your scheme here and start doing exploration. How do you go about exploring? Well, you explore, first of all, to explore, you have to plan what you want to explore. You have to decide on one aspect only of what is worrying you, right? So you plan that activity. Then you explore. How do you explore? Well, remember I told you that this methodology of exploratory action research is economic, or at least I want to show you and to demonstrate to you that it's economic in terms of time. Well, instead of designing new activities for your students just to test, what you can do, or what you will do, which is very useful, is to design your exploratory tools with classroom activities so as not to take extra time from your class, from your lesson, right? So for exploratory tools, I will show you how to work on or how to learn from some materials I will show you later with you. So you do your exploratory part, then you analyze and reflect on the materials or the data you have collected from your own materials, your own classroom, your own lesson materials that your students have done. There are other materials or other tools for collecting data, which I will show you later with you. And then, and only after that, you plan your change and you start the light blue cycle again, right? Of course, you have more of this information to read in the materials I'm going to show with you later. And this is the basics of learning about exploratory action research. On the left, you can see our book, which is open access and free to everyone. You can also scan the QR code or look at the link, which are the two ways for you to access freely to this book called A Handbook for Exploratory Action Research. It's a really practical handbook. You can choose to read at any part you want. It's not like a novel, right? You go to the index and you look for what you need. In fact, I would recommend you start reading at least the introduction and the first chapter to have an idea, and then you can choose from very practical, very practical cases on what you can learn and put into practice. So here is all your access to the handbook. Of course, you can watch this video later and stop whenever you want. And now we're going back to the classroom puzzles that I asked you to think about and write in the chat. And now, hopefully, after this presentation, I hope you have thought, or some of your puzzles have come to your mind, things from last year, things that are repeating themselves throughout the years in your teacher career also, right? So let's think of these puzzles and how you can solve them through this methodology. You can go, remember, to the handbook for exploratory action research, which I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. let me tell you something, a good idea. You will be able to share this handbook, if you find it useful, with teachers of other subjects, or with school teachers if you work in primary schools, for example, because there's going to be a new version, a translated version of the Exploratory Action Research handbook in the coming months. The British Council is going to launch it. We don't know exactly when, but please be ready to come into contact with this manual in Spanish in the coming months. So again, let's start, turning on the button of thinking of your puzzles, or let's think of your puzzles as soon as you start meeting your new groups of students, right? So you will feel that you will need the handbook for exploratory action research badly. Right. So here are the references. Sorry that they have been, the title overlaps with some of the references. And well, thank you very much for listening. I'll be very happy to have contact with you on my Instagram account. It's EAR for Exploratory Action Research Argentina. And of course, I'll be super happy to answer your questions, your thoughts. Maybe you don't have questions yet, but you have some reflections, which I think I would consider super interesting to listen to you and to discuss with you in the next 5 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria Marta. Thanks everybody for staying this late in the evening. But this has been a fantastic session, Maria Marta, especially for people who are not yet familiar with the idea of exploratory action research, or who have these misconceptions about research with a capital R. So I'd love to take some of the questions in the chat if people have them. But if you agree, I'd like to do an exercise, because many teachers posted their puzzles at the start. And one that I saw was recurrent. Monica, Andrea, Jocelyn mentioned lack of interest as a puzzle. So say they want to take this exploratory action research path towards working on this puzzle. Where could they start?
Well, I think that it's a very interesting point. I noticed that one of the most voted, let's say, options was, apart from lack of interest, lack of time. But I think that throughout the presentation, I think I made it quite clear. Thing is lack of interest. We're going through hard times at schools. We're going through hard times with adolescents, not only at schools, at private institutes. Many people think, well, but they're going to English lessons, to the institute, so they should be motivated, they should be interested. Maybe they are not. The thing is that one of the ways to go about it is to try to check or to learn why it is that they are not interested, right? Many people tend to say, and I used to be one of those who said, but these kids don't care about anything. Maybe I didn't look for what they really cared. I didn't inquire into what they needed, what they were interested in. I thought that some of the ideas I believed were good for them would work, but in fact they didn't. So once I discovered that I could explore their needs, and I think this is very simple. You can start very simple, and you can start by just asking them, of course, through classroom activities, right? A quiz. Just maybe sometimes you can check it with a hands up activity, 3 minutes, right? Voting. Of course, you have to record this. You have to keep this evidence for you. right? Particularly if you want to share it with your colleagues. I mean, I've shared my experiences in conferences, but it's not only necessary. It's not necessary to do that. You can share it at the teacher's room with your paralela, right? With your tu compañera, your mate. Another way of finding what they're interested in is just by asking them. Yes, in fact, it's by asking them. Right. I was thinking about other ways of collecting information, gathering information, but I think they are the main source of information, right?
Of course. And the good thing is that now that we are at this point at the start of the school year, it's a wonderful opportunity to do getting to know each other activities where you can survey what people are interested in, what type of activities they enjoy doing and which ones they don't, what is challenging for them or what is demotivating for them. You can talk to colleagues as well and, I don't know, talk to the teacher they had last year and see what worked last year with them, although people change over the summer, but asking them is a good starting point.
Yeah, but one thing is important to consider, and this is what happens at the beginning of the year, let's say in March, April, with kids and teens may change completely by the end of May or June. So we have to constantly check what they like. In the case that we want to check that, I mean, with exploratory action research, we can explore many things. For example, why it is that most of the students got very good marks in the test, right? I mean, we don't only use exploratory action research. We don't only explore just to improve on things that we feel that are not very, have not been very successful. We can explore why things were successful indeed. So, I think that's the usefulness of this methodology, right? Of course, at the beginning, teachers may feel that they don't know where to start. So in that case, please do contact me and I can give you a hand, right? I have gone through quite many years of experience with teens in particular. So, I mean, that doesn't guarantee anything because you may find things that you would never have expected to happen, right? That's the amazing thing about teaching also, right? Finding things that you say, hey, I thought that they would answer something absolutely different. So to me, this is magic.
Absolutely. And something that I wanted to mention as well is we, of course, mentioned the Bible, that is the handbook for exploratory action research. But kind of spinning off that, there are the champion teacher books also on teachingenglish.org. And those are teacher stories of teachers who tried exploratory action research cycles. And they are very short reads. I think each teacher story is like 2 or 3 pages long with lots of pictures. It's very light reading. And teachers share, I had this problem. These are the strategies I tried. This is what happened. This is how I adjusted. And you will see actual examples of exploratory action research cycles that are feasible, that are not writing a paper and doing this very elaborate thing.
And another important thing about those 3 books, 3 or 4, the champion teacher books, is that they are from our region, because these are collections of experiences of teachers from Chile, Mexico, and Peru. So, I mean, we are not reading about some schools in a context that is absolutely diverse, different from ours, right? So I think that these books are worth reading too, right? But well, as I said with our Bible, which is going to have the Spanish version very soon, and in this way, I invite you to share it with your colleagues. If you work in schools, you will be able to share it with la maestra de primerito, the teacher the teacher of art, the art teacher, anyone who would have a classroom would, have a great opportunity to enjoy this material, right, in Spanish.
Yes, and for anybody who thinks still after this that this is too much work, this is too much hassle, there's nothing that's more draining as a teacher to go into a classroom and have a group of students who are disengaged, who hate the lesson, who are bored, who are not responsive, who don't participate. So any amount of work that you have to do in terms of exploring ways to improve that situation is less work than staying on for a full academic year. And those classes that are 60 minutes long but feel like eternity. So even if you take baby steps, even if you start with small things, I would strongly recommend that you give it a go, because it is worthwhile. And when your students become engaged, then everything becomes easier.
Yeah, I agree. And let me tell you that planning is key in this case. And as we plan, as we adjust plans over time and throughout the year, this is our opportunity to dig into what's happening in our class before we go into the next step, into the next term, into the next unit, right? So if we feel that there's something that could be improved, I think that's the moment when you have to, it only takes 10 minutes, for example, right? It only takes a break. And another thing that's very, very useful, when you feel that something's going wrong, for example, and I'm rounding off, Mariela, otherwise people will go to sleep, is journaling. Journaling is a very good opportunity. You can just jot down in your libretita, right? Or in your chat with yourself on WhatsApp, or record yourself while you're closing the door of the classroom and going to the teacher's room. Those 30 steps you have to walk down the corridor, those are for recording yourself and saying, for example, today I felt that this happened. This, I feel that's not going wrong. And then go back to it when you plan the next unit.
Absolutely. On Monday, we had Pilar Capaul, and she mentioned the idea of having a teacher's notebook with just 2 columns, what worked, what didn't work, just to jot down tiny notes after each lesson to keep track of these results. So absolutely. I can see comments in the chat. Yes, the book is Champion Teachers that we were just discussing. I will look for the links to send to Lily to post in the chat very shortly. I'm happy to hear that people in the chat will explore this over the first couple of lessons with their students. And I think we should start wrapping this up. So Maria Marta, thank you for your participation and your amazing contribution to the community of exploratory action research in country, for representing this cause that is so significant in our teaching community.
And thank you for visibilizing this, because many people consider, particularly teachers many people say, but this is not useful, who cares about that? Hey, I invite you to come to my classroom. Come and see what's happening here, right? What do you mean it's not necessary? It's absolutely necessary to reflect on your practice, not to reflect for 10 hours, just to reflect with your plan for the next unit, for your next week teaching, right? Just that.
Absolutely.
Simple, but essential to me.
And it's always important to maintain this link between reflection and action. If you look, and the Teaching English site has so many interesting articles on this, but this idea, reflective teaching practice, is not on the bus thinking. Like, of course, we all think about how my day went, how my lesson went while you're having a shower. But then what do you do with it? So if you know your lesson didn't work, your students are not speaking in class, then what can we do? And that's the big puzzle that I think we need to work on. How can we engage learners? How can we motivate learners and perhaps cope a little bit better?
Yeah. Just in case anyone needs some coaching, some help, do not hesitate to write to me, to drop me an email or contact me through Instagram, right? I may give you a hand for nothing, for the pleasure of doing it, right?
Thank you so much, Maria Marta. And you're such a good example of this idea of leadership in teaching communities that Agustina was mentioning earlier today. All right, I'm going to wrap it up because it's very, very late. Now, I appreciate the over 100 teachers who stayed with us till the very end, despite the time. I'm going to invite everybody who left and comes back to finish watching the recording of today and of previous sessions that we had over the week, and also to come back tomorrow. Tomorrow, we have 3 sessions. We have one session with Cecilia Nobre, who's going to be talking about doing more with less in the English classroom. We are going to have Maria Eugenia Marcioni, who's going to be discussing her own experience about teaching in fragmented realities and share strategies for engagement in vulnerable contexts. And we're going to have Antonella de l'Aquila, who's going to be talking about vocabulary. Vocabulary is my biggest problem. What's missing from the lexical recipe? So that's our day tomorrow, the final day of this ELT week. I will not be here tomorrow. My colleague Robert Chatfield will, and he will be hosting tomorrow's session. So I will be probably in the audience with you. So I hope everybody comes back and have a great evening. Thank you, Maria Marta, again.
Thank you.
Bye.
And you come tomorrow.